Hello and welcome to DMAF. My name is Chris. Today we're doing a short video that covers the content of the safety induction. If you are already inducted but your card is expired, you'll need to do an online quiz, and this video will answer the questions in the quiz. So come on, let's check it out. Before you enter DMAF, you'll need three things. You'll need your DMAF card on, somewhere where we can see it. You also need some shoes that cover the top of your foot, and you'll also need your hair tied back. All right, let's head in. To get into DMAF, you'll need shoes that cover the top of your feet. Examples of things that are not okay are thongs, or high heels that don't cover the top of your feet, or ballet flats, or even boat shoes. If you don't have the right shoes, you can borrow some of our gumboots. They're not very popular, but we will make you wear them. And you'll also want to wear plastic bags as socks. These plastic bags will protect you from skin infections like fungus and tinea. And now, I'm ready to work. Card fraud is when you use someone else's card and pretend to be them to get into the lab.
Hannah, is this your DMAF card?
Yes! If you do this, you will be banned for 2 weeks, and the person who lent you their card will be banned for 2 weeks. So don't do it, otherwise there's big consequences. To get access to the DMAF lab, you must have your DMAF card on. If you've forgotten it but have one, we will unfortunately make you print a new one, which will cost $10. So make sure you remember it every time to save yourself $10. As you walk into the lab, you'll need to put your bag away somewhere safe. The best place to put them is underneath the tables in the pigeonholes. Where we don't want them on the ground, because then people trip over them. We don't want them on the desk, because that takes up working space. So make sure you put them in the pigeonhole. And please do not store your projects in the pigeonhole. If it stays there for too long, we'll throw it out. Hopefully we'll come find you before we throw it out, but we do throw things out if they're left there. There is a danger of loose clothing getting caught in moving parts of machines. So lanyards and neckties aren't appropriate for the workplace, so you want to take them off. And if you're wearing a hoodie in winter, you want to make sure that you tie these together and tuck them inside your jumper. That way they won't get caught in things. If you're wearing a headscarf for faith reasons, we just ask that you tuck it in or pin it down so that it doesn't get caught in machines as well. There's a question on the online quiz that asks, what does PPE stand for? PPE stands for Personal Protective Equipment, which is our safety gear. There's another question that asks, who provides you with safety gear? The answer is the DMAF lab. But the safety gear belongs to us and is not to be taken out of the lab. And it is kept on tables in both labs, and we have goggles that will need to be worn when you use machines that require them, but they don't need to be worn all the time when just walking around the lab. And if you have reading glasses, you'll need to wear safety goggles on top of them, because reading glasses don't meet our safety standard. We also have earmuffs for ear protection, and we also have earplugs as well. With the earplugs, please make sure you don't put them back in the box when you're finished. Please keep them. It's a bit gross for them to go back in the box. We also have some gloves here as well, which can be used when handling sharp material, but gloves are not allowed on machines with moving parts. So that's just for moving stuff around. And we also have hair ties and hair clips for tying your hair back. This button here is for the extractor. If you look around the workshop, tools that have hoses coming down from the ceiling have extraction. So your online quiz asks what tools they are. Those tools are the Bobbin Sander, the disc sander, and the bandsaw. And you want to make sure you turn this on before. It takes away the dust so we don't breathe it in and just makes the place a bit cleaner. So to start it, you're going to press start here, and in about 5 seconds you'll hear it turn on. There it is, it's working. And then we'll turn that off. So when you guys come into the lab, if you're one of the first people here, you'll have to turn that on. We usually keep it running throughout the day, but if it's quiet, we get you to turn it off when you're done as well. So if you can't hear the noise, that means it's not on. If there's an emergency, you will need to know where the exits are. Our main exit is the front door, which you would come through. But if that's blocked for some reason, there's also an emergency exit in the back corner of the woodwork room. And there's also another emergency exit in the back loading dock area where the CNCs. If there's a fire, please let a staff member know as soon as possible. There are fire extinguishers in each lab that can be used in the event of a fire. You'll need to know where the first aid kits are. We have two in here. One is in the main hallway and the other one is in the woodwork room. If you get hurt, you guys are welcome to open this up and get what you need. But please let a staff member know as soon as possible that you've been hurt and we can give you the help you need. We're all first aid trained and that help could range from a band-aid or even calling an ambulance. Yeah, grab what you need from here. Please just use it if you get hurt. Don't take this home to restock your supplies at home. If we catch you doing that, you will get in trouble. We have two eye wash stations in our workshop. One is in the main hallway and one is in the woodwork room. If you get a chemical or a wood chip stuck in your eye, it's really uncomfortable and you want to get it out as soon as possible. What you'll need to do is flick off these caps. You want to turn the water on. You also want to curl this top eyelid as well and get the water right in there and wash it out until it comes out. To turn on the extractor, you want to go to the control panel, which is located in the CNC room. Here it is here, it's the big one, and we've got operating instructions, which I'll talk through now. Basically, you've got the big on and off button, and you're going to turn that from off to on. Once that happens, this fault light turns on, and you're going to hold down the green button until the fault light turns off. So here we go, hold down, and then there you go. So now you can go in and do your spray painting or your foam cutting. Once you finish, you're going to come back and you're going to turn it to off, and it will turn off in about 5 minutes. It's just clearing the air to get rid of any lingering fumes. This room here is called the spray booth. What it is, we've got a filtered wall here with a big extractor behind it, and it sucks a lot of air. It's going to take away bad fumes and chemicals that we don't want to breathe in. So typically it's used for doing spray painting and hot wire foam cutting, or just using chemicals that produce bad fumes. So to use this room, you want to make sure that you face that way. The fumes are going to go that way. It's a bit silly to spray paint this way and then all the fumes come back on you. So it's going to face this way, and we want to work together in one line. We don't want someone else in front of us copying our fumes. Also, if you are using spray paints in here, please make sure that you're 30 centimeters away from this wall here. Otherwise it can get really clogged with paint and wreck the filters. We've got a line here on the bottom, so make sure you're spraying behind that line. Also in the spray booth area, so where I'm pointing, there's some cabinets that have paints and clear lacquers and some chemicals in them. You guys can use those paints and clear lacquers, and they're free. Most of them are just left over from other people's projects. Painting can only happen in a few places in our labs. One of them is here in the spray booth, so you can paint in here, that's fine. Other places where you can paint in home base in the designated painting areas. Like I said, we have paints that you can use, but you can't take our tins out of the lab. So if you are painting upstairs, you'll need to get a container and pour it in there, and we call that process decanting. And there's some questions on the safest way to do that, and the answers are, you will need a spill tray on a table, you'll need a container, and that container will need to be labeled. It's important that you label the chemicals and paints. That way, if they're left behind, we can dispose of them safely. Right, let's do two examples. We'll do a paint. So you pour some paint in there, go upstairs, and then you paint. Let's say you have some left over and you need to get rid of that safely. You can just pour that back into the tin you got it from. So let's say you've done some oil-based painting and then you've got a brush that needs to be cleaned up. You can pour some terps into here, and then you can wash your brush out. And then once you've cleaned the brush, you'll have dirty terps that you need to tip out. We have some chemical waste bins, which will be over near the sink. And you can pour them into the correct bin, which will be labeled. They're like a container. With the labels, we have a book of labels that has all our chemicals on it. So we ask you to try and find the chemical that you're using. That way we know what the chemical is. One of the questions on your online quiz asks, where are the emergency stop buttons? They are located on the center columns of both workshops. Here it is, it's the red button on the yellow square. If you hit that button, it turns off the power to the whole lab, and we need to let you know that you guys have the authority to hit that button. So if you see someone in danger, maybe they're trapped in a machine that's spinning or doing something dangerous, you can hit that button and really help that person out. We will also hit that button when we want to stop the class and get your attention, or even at the end of the day when we're packing up. We need you to be alert at all times while being in the lab. Please make sure you have a good night's rest before coming in. If we think you are too tired, we'll ask you to leave for your safety and the safety of others. And you must not be under the influence of drugs or alcohol. In the lab, we don't want you using earphones. Earphones can get tangled in moving parts, and it's also hard for us to communicate with you or get your attention if there's something dangerous. In the woodwork room, we just want to cut wood on the machines. If we cut metal and plastics in the woodwork room, it will blunten our tools, so we want to use the metal elastics room for metal and plastics. In the woodwork room, there are some timbers that are banned. The first one is MDF, also known as craft board. It's a thin particle board that's very fine, and the dust is no good to breathe in, so we don't want that. Another one is treated pine. The dust is also bad to breathe in and it smells quite strong. There are two different types, H2 blue and H3 green. Both are banned in our lab. And we don't encourage large logs. You can bring them in, but we can't cut them for you on large machines. They'll need to be cut by hand, so just be aware of that. Resins are allowed to be cast in the media labs, but they're not allowed to be sanded or cut in the wood or timber labs. The dust is, again, very bad to breathe in. And we don't want plasters to be cut in the metal or timber labs. It'll blunten the machines and cause rust. It can be cut in the plaster lab. Every machine is fitted with an SOP. An SOP is a safe operating procedure, a document which shows you the name of the tool, what safety level it is, what safety gear you need to wear, and how to use the machine safely. So, here we are at our next machine, which is the timber bandsaw. If we look at our safe operating procedure, you'll see that you'll need to have your glasses on before using it. It also says that you make sure the guard is in place. So this here is the guard, and that will help us not cut our fingers off. So you can adjust the guide with these knobs here. So we've got a knob here which unlocks it, so we can unlock it. And then this is the moving up and down knob. So that can move it up and down. So if it's too high, it becomes a bit dangerous. So if you're cutting something and the blade's not down, something goes wrong or someone bumps you, there's a chance that you could hit your hand in that blade. So we want to bring this blade down as low as possible. And to do that, we can undo this and bring it down. Like that. We also want to make sure, to avoid cutting our hands, that we use our hands in a safe way. So we've got this line here, we sort of call it the danger line. You want to have your hands going either side of that. And you can use push sticks as well. We usually have push sticks on the window behind you there. So if you are pushing directly straight into the blade and getting close, use a push stick and not your hand. And you can also use combinations of the fence, which you can adjust like that, and you can push up against the fence to do things nice and safely like that. All right. Also, with how we use our hands, we have a minimal size. So 50 by 50 is our minimal size, but students keep doing that anyway. So we've come up with a new way to do it as well. These are called multi-grips, and you can then do your cutting like that, and that way your hands are nice and clear and you're being safe. So if you are doing small things, make sure you find a safe way to do it, either using multi-grips or push sticks. And if it's really, really tiny, we won't let you do it. All right, so that's how to avoid cutting our hands. We need to teach you guys about the dangers of using round things. So round things like cylinders or balls can spin out of control and cause trouble. So let's have an example of that. So I'm going to lift this guard up a little bit and we'll turn it on. To turn it on, we've got a green button here and a twisting stop button. So we'll untwist that stop button, it pops out, press start. And what can happen with round things is it can grip on and spin out of control. So here we go. Woo! There we go. That's the danger of round things. We used to ban people from using round things, but now we want to educate you how to do it safely. The safe way to do it is to bring the guard down as low as possible to suit the round thing you're cutting. And then You have to cut it in such a way that your hands are not on the danger line, they're to the side, and you need to grip the cylinder well. And that way you can cut it like that. And just come see a technician before you start cutting around things, and we'll tell you whether it's appropriate or not. Now what we want to talk about is the blade. So you can do straight cuts and you can do curve cuts. So we'll do a bit of a straight cut like that. We can do curved cuts, and we can also reverse. Alright. So you can do straight cuts, you can do curved cuts to a certain degree. The blade length, the width of the blade that way will determine how well it turns. We've got small ones and big ones. This one's a big one, so it's probably better for cutting straight. But yes, you can turn, but if you turn too much, it can start to spark and you can eventually snap the blade, so just be aware of that. The secret to turning well is to push and turn at the same time, so it's pushing forward and turning. If you just twist without pushing, you can break the blade. You can also reverse out of a cut, which is fine. You just need to be nice and careful so you don't pull the blade off its tracks. When removing small offcuts, please use a push stick to do it. Don't use your hands to remove small offcuts, otherwise you might get fingers, so that's what the push stick's for. Then we can scrape that into a bin. Our next tool is called the Jigsaw. It's a handheld power saw, and it goes up and down like that, and it can do straight lines, it can do curves. It does a similar job to the bandsaw, can be a bit rough. It's really handy because it can go inside holes, but it can also cut stuff on the outside. Alright, so when we use the jigsaw, we'll make sure we use our goggles. We have to make sure that we secure our work. We're going to do that today with an F-clamp, and we can clamp it on the bench like this. You can move it at the back here like that, and then you can do the last bit up the clamp. Make sure you wind it down a bit first, and then here we go. It's best to bend down as you do it. And there we go, we've clamped it. Alright, then we have to get our hands in the right position. So we'll get it into this hole. We're going to cut out this inside section here. So we get it there. I'm right-handed, so I'm going to have my right hand at the back and my left hand on front. If you're left-handed, you'll have to swap around the other way. And yep, it's important to have that top hand up there. If you put it down here, you can sort of lose concentration and put your finger in the blade. So we don't want that to happen. So always have your hand on top. Don't put your two hands at the back, otherwise it starts jumping up and down. So it's important to have that hand on top. All right, we don't want to start the machine up against the timber, otherwise it might kick and jump as it starts. We want to pull it back and have it in the middle, and then we're going to turn it on. It'll go to full speed, and then it can easily cut the timber. All right, let's turn it on and go through. It's important that you wait for this jigsaw to go completely stop before you pull it out, like that. If you pull it out while the blade is still moving, it can be a bit dangerous. It can also damage this blade by bending it when it kicks off the wood. So it's important to leave that in there. We have battery jigsaws as well, but they're a little bit different. They've got a safety button, so it won't start. There's a trigger until you press the safety button and then the trigger, and then it will go. Both the battery and electric jigsaws are good options. Also, when using the jigsaw or other power tools, when possible, it's best to clamp your work with two clamps. One clamp it can rotate, but once you've got two clamps on there, it's nice and solid, and then you can easily go along without your work moving back and forth. Our next machine is the Bobbin Sander. The Bobbin Sander spins and goes up and down and is really good for sanding internal curves like this. If we check out our safe operating procedure, you'll see that we'll have to have our safety goggles on, and a big one is have to have our hair tied back. What can happen with this machine is that it can grip onto your hair and it won't let go and will pull your hair out or even pull your face into the bobbin sander. Apart from that, we just want to keep it flat on the table and hold it firmly into the machine. So to start it, we've got a start button here, and then we can sand shapes like that. And that's the bobbin sander. Our next machine is called the disc sander. The disc sander is a spinning disc, which is really good for neatly sanding straight lines, or also doing external curves like that, which we'll show you in a minute. If we check out our safe operating procedure, you'll see that we want to have our goggles on before we use the machine. This machine is safe, but if you don't use it properly, it can be dangerous. So it's important that you always keep your work flat on the table, and you don't want to be holding things up in the air because then it can also flip up or shoot down, and that's when people's hands and fingers get caught in the sander in this gap here. You also want to make sure that you keep your fingers behind this white line. We don't want your finger any closer than 2 centimeters away from the disc there. What we never want to do, we don't ever want to get thin flat material and put it against the face like that. Yeah, that's a bit dangerous. If you do want to sand big flat areas, you'll want to use the power sander, which is a power tool, handheld power tool. You can also change the angle on this. The bigger disc sanders we have, behind the disc sanders, we'll have a square piece of wood, which we call the disc sander square, and you can check and make sure that your work is square. You can adjust the angle using this lever here, but you will want to make sure that it's nice and square before you start doing your work, because the person behind you may not have put it square again. Also, if you are doing small things, you can also double side tape them to a bigger piece of wood and sand them like that, and that would be a safe way to do it as well. To turn it on, we press the green button and it'll go. So I want to sand a straight line, so I can go against that until I sand up to my line. I can also do curves like that. Here we are at the woodwork drill press, and we're going to learn how to change drill bits. What you'll need is a chuck key. This is a key chuck. The chuck key, it slots into that circle and the teeth line up, and you want to go anti-clockwise, and that undoes the chuck. Then we can take that chuck out and we can roll it with our hands until it opens the teeth up, and then we can put the new drill bit in. Do it up by hand. We do the last little bit up with the key, and that does it up nice and tight, like that. It's really dangerous if you leave that key in there and then turn the machine on. That spins around, and then this flies out of control in a direction which could hurt someone. You want to make sure that it looks good, and then turn it on and give it a spin. It should spin pretty straight. So that's pretty good. Let's check out this other chuck over here. This one is called a keyless chuck, so there's no teeth. This one has teeth. So this one a keyless chuck you can do with your hand, so you undo like that, and then out it comes. Then you can put another drill bit in, and then just do it up with your hands. Give it a bit of a look, spin it, and if it spins straight, that means you're right and ready to go. We've also got cordless drills. Cordless drills also have a keyless chuck. So all you need to do is just grab this, and pretty much when you're looking at it, you want to go anti-clockwise. So you can grab it like that, and then turn the chuck, which is this front bit here, and then those teeth will loosen, and then you can change bits, put a new bit in, tighten it up. Once it gets almost tight, give it a good turn, and then it should spin straight, and then you're ready to go. All right, there's a tricky question on your online quiz about Do all drills have reverse function? The cordless drills have a reverse function. So they have, that's going forward, that drills in or screws in. And then there's a reverse button which will unscrew when you're doing screws. So that's important. These drill presses, they only have a drilling direction, so they don't have reverse function. So the answer to that question, do all drills have reverse function? The answer is false. Another question on your online quiz is about drill speed. You won't have to worry about it too much because we've set the speeds. The woodwork drills, they go fast for drilling through wood to give you a nice neat cut. And the drills in the metalwork room go a bit slower so that they don't overheat that drill bit and blunten it. And also it makes it safer going slower, that doesn't spin out of control. You'll also need to know how to adjust the table height. There is a clamp at the back of the drill press. You'll need to undo that. So that lever needs to be done anti-clockwise. That'll loosen this table and it'll start to sway side to side. Now that it's loose, you can unwind this winder and that will adjust the height of the table, and you can adjust it to suit the height of your work and the height of your drill bit. Our next tool is the nail gun. We're going to use this one today. We call that the nail gun. This is a similar one. We call it the pin gun. You guys will need to know the difference because they have different nails and different pins. So this one here is a nail and it has a pointy end and a head end, T-shaped end. And these are pins. They have a pointy end and a pointy end. That's how you tell the difference. Nails are also a bit thicker than pins. Make sure you don't mix them up in the guns. The nails won't even fit in the pin gun, but the pins will fit in the nail gun. But if you do that, they're too thin and they bend and jam and damage the gun. So make sure you don't mix them up. And away we go. So let's talk about some safety with this. Most important thing is we don't want to get nails or bits of wood in our eyes, so we're going to be wearing our eye protection, and we'll also wear our hearing protection once we get going. We've got to load this gun or check and make sure it's got the right nails. So to open it, there's a hook at the bottom here. You press that and it flicks out. To load the nail gun, we put the pointy ends at the front of the nail gun like that and clip them into these slide bits, and then we can push it up like that. You can see that this red indicator indicates when you've run out of nails. This gun will still fire when it's run out of nails, so make sure that you keep checking and make sure that you have nails in the gun. We can close it up. We can hook it up to our hose. To connect it on, it's very similar to a garden hose. We're going to pull that back, push forward, and then force this forward with our fingers. The best technique to do that is to use your fingers on the hose, thumb and first finger on the hose. There we go. We're armed and ready to go. The gun won't fire until you press down the safety nozzle. So this one here is the safety nozzle. So for it to fire, that has to be pressed down and then you press the button. If you press that button first and then push the safety nozzle down, it won't fire, and then you'll have to set up again. Safety nozzle down and then pull the trigger, and then it will go bang, like that. When we nail, we want to make sure that we nail going forwards. There's a little notch here that we can line up with a line, if we were to do a line. And yeah, you want to go nice and straight. You don't want to go on angles like that. The other big danger is getting your fingers with a nail. So we don't ever want to hold where we're nailing. We want to hold somewhere else. You can also use a clamp or a vise to set up your work so that you can safely nail. Other dangers are shooting other people. So we always set up the work either facing down to the ground or up against a wall. That way, if you were to shoot through thin ply or go on an angle, it would go somewhere in a safe direction. But usually it's pretty safe. So I'm going to keep going like that. When we're done, we can unclick it like this. It can be quite loud. It's important that you have your hearing protection on, and then off it goes. This machine here is called the metal rollers. It's used to curve metal, and we're going to give it a quick go. So here we've got some flat sheet. The flat sheet goes on the smooth bit here, and in it goes. And we can adjust it to do different sizes, but it's curved to that size. This is a metal rod. Metal rods need to be in the groove areas. If you put the metal rod on the flat area where the sheet goes, you can damage that. So the smooth areas for sheets, the grooves are for rods. And then you can see here, we curled that rod. So there we go. The dangers with this machine is getting your fingers caught in moving parts. So make sure your fingers are out of moving parts. Oh, hey, didn't see you there. Well, while you're here, come on in. We'll show you how to do some spot welding. All right, so what we're going to do today is use this machine here. It's got a spot welder. Kind of looks like a giant stapler, but it uses electricity to melt metal together, and that's called a spot weld when it actually melts it together. So that's how we're going to do it. But before we do it, there's some safety things we need to do. We need to make sure that we have our safety glasses on, and we have to make sure we have some welding gloves on. The welding gloves will protect us from hot metal and also from sparks and the electricity, so we're going to have them on as well. When we use this, it makes smoke that's bad to breathe in, so we're going to turn on the extraction. So the extractor's over here, it's got an on button, on it goes, and then this is an adjustable hood, and we can just put that above our work about sort of 30 centimeters away, or thereabouts. All right, we're going to set this to about 5 or 7 cycles. So I'm set on 7, and then we can hold it there, and we're going to go all the way down with this lever, and then it'll spot weld. It'll make a little noise and a spark, and you can see that's joined together, and then we can do a few of those. It's also recommended that you use a leather apron to protect your clothes from the sparks. These sparks can melt your clothing, especially if they're like a plastic-based clothing. Most cotton clothing should be fine. So yeah, if you're worried about your nice clothes, you can wear an apron. It's not compulsory, but it might protect your clothing. This is our metal guillotine. It's a machine that's used to cut metal and soft plastics. And if we look at our safe operating procedure, it'll tell us that we'll need to wear our goggles, which we will. So I've got some metal here. Metal needs to be under 1 mil thickness, so maximum 1 mil thickness. So this is 0.7, so that's fine, we can cut that. We also don't want to cut wire or metal rods in this machine, otherwise it'll damage the blade. We also don't want to cut paper or cardboard in this machine. Paper and cardboard has minerals in it, like calcium, which will blunt the blade. When we use it, we want to make sure that this guard is in place and that we can't get our fingers under there. So that guard will always be there like that. We want to get our workpiece. We want to cut a nice square cut. We can put it up against this square edge here. And we're going to line up our line with the blade. To view that, we can see it through there. So once we get there, we can then look over the front here and line it up with the bottom of the blade. And then we can cut it. When using the guillotine, make sure that the foot on the ground isn't in the way of foot pedal, otherwise you can crush or hurt your toes like this. It wants to be to the side where it's nice and safe. The material here is really thin copper. It's less than 1/2 mil thick, so that means it has really sharp edges like that. So we recommend that you be careful with thin metal materials when you have them, and we recommend that you wear gloves when you carry these materials. On the guillotine, you're allowed to use gloves while you're cutting the metal, but gloves are not allowed on machines that have moving parts or spinning parts. So this machine here is a drill press, and this particular one is a metal drill press, and basically it's a drill that spins around with a pressing system, allows you to do nice, neat, perpendicular holes. Before we want to use it, we want to check out what safety gear we'll need. We'll need to make sure we have our glasses on. Bits of metal can hit us in the eye, so we're going to wear glasses. We don't want to wear gloves on any machines with moving parts, otherwise it might catch us and not let go and spin our hand around and do some damage. The biggest danger on this machine is that your work can get caught on the drill bit and then spin out of control. This is really dangerous, especially in metal work, because the sharp corners of metal can cut you. So we need to stop the machine from spinning somehow. To do that, we got a few options. One is we can clamp on a fence. So we've got a few different fences here that you can clamp on. And that will stop your work from spinning if you have your left-hand side touching like that. Another way to do it is to use a vise or a clamp, or you could also individually clamp it as well. All right, to turn it on, we've got a green button here. We can turn it on and it will start to spin. We want to make sure we hold it with one hand, with the left-hand corner touching so it can't spin. This hand should be not too close, but not too far away. And then we can drill through like that. And then we want to hold it down as we come up so that it doesn't lift up like that. You'll notice that there's sharp bits at the back there. Just be aware of them. We don't want to cut ourselves on them. We can also get rid of them with a file or a drill. In our metal lab, we have a range of metal benders. The most dangerous thing is getting your fingers caught in moving parts, so keep your fingers clear. Also be aware, the benders have a counterweight which could hit you or other people, so be aware of other people. We also have a magnetic bender, which uses a strong electromagnet to clamp and bend. This magnetic field can damage internal medical equipment. It can also damage digital and magnetic equipment, like your phones, fancy watches, credit cards, or student cards. Please make sure you remove these before using the machine. This brings us to the end of the safety course refresher video. Thanks for joining us. Hope you enjoyed it. You are now ready to do your online quiz. You will have unlimited attempts and you'll need to get all the questions right. And then, once you've done that, you have to come back into the lab and get your card reprinted, and then you're ready to go again. And we look forward to seeing you in the lab.